Ois Yud Beis. The Frierdiker Rebbe is going to present the final moments of Golus in the light that despite it being Ikvis of the Mashiach, the lowest of the low, over there being that it's going to complete the Kavanah Al-Yena for which the world was created, one can already start appreciating and celebrating that Simcha of the future. Sagt der Frierdiker Rebbe, we rejoice in ourselves with the Simcha of Torah. We rejoice with the Torah, with the hope that the Eibishter will help, and the Torah will as well, in turn, also rejoice with us. And then it's a complete Simcha. Beruchnis and Begashmis, when there's the fusion of both of our Simchas together. In truth, says the Frierdiker Rebbe, we discussed that we have what to rejoice with. Even though now the situation spiritually is a little bit cloudy, vervolkend, still one must be besimcha. Because it's doch ikvis the Mashiach. Ikvis Mashiach means it's the heels. But it's the heels, that means the lowest part of Golos, which is what leads into the Geula. And now is the time of Ne'itzas Haschala B'Soif. Now is when we're at the end of times, but it reconnects and comes full circle to the beginning of times. Because, as the Frierdiker Rebbe is going to demonstrate, there's Soif Ma'asav and Machshava Tchila. What happens in the end of time, when a person in the most practical sense knocks the last nail in, that really fulfills what has been his intention from the beginning. Us, in Ikvis of the Mashiach, we fulfill the Kavanah Al-Yena, the initial and supernal intent that the Eibishter had in this bitter Golus, Mibayisum B'chutz. That means his intent internally and, so to speak, externally, with all the factors playing out in the Golus. And Baruch Hashem, we learn, we're in a state that we daven, and we learn of our Chassidus, we understand what we're learning, and with this Vart, we understand, we apply it to Avodah Shabalev, our service, our duty of our heart, and with this one is allowed to be besimcha, regardless, as we'll see, in the level that we actually achieve and we attain. For our time, this is what's needed, and this is where we're at. This is what we're involved in. In Chassidus, it points out the difference between Gashmius and Ruchnius. That in Gashmius, where's the foundation of the building? It's at the bottom, on top of which the entire building is built and stands. Ruchnius, it's the other way around. The Yisoid, the beginning and the root of everything and the cause of everything is Lamaila. And the building is below it, the way it trickles all the way down. He says you should know, being that this is the way Ruchnius is built, so to speak, Golus Yidin, the exile, so to speak, Yid, Tzir of a Yid, these are those that they fear and durch, the Kavanah Al-Yena. We bring to fruition and bring to realize the Kavanah Al-Yena, to create a dira, a dwelling place and a home for the Eibishter down here, is realized dafka through the lower Yidden. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe seemingly starts describing a very special chassid, Rabbi Isaac Hamler. The Rabbi Isaac Hamler was a chassid really of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Mittler Rebbe. In the Alter Rebbe's days, he was formulating his character as that level caliber chassid. Sagt der Frierdiker Rebbe, Harabagoin Rabbi Isaac Zatzal of Hamil, Epstein, his last name was. He was in the Elter Zaydas Zeiten, in the days of the Tzemach Tzedek. He was a Baal Madrega at that point, and even though he was also by Rabbeinu Agadol, by the Alter Rebbe, but there he was from the young ones. Being a younger man, he was also a good mekabel. Hence, he wasn't yet formulated. He was only in a state of receiving and accepting from the Alter Rebbe. The Tata means the Rebbe Rashab once asked the Zayda, the Rebbe Marash, what is an Atzmi? What is a chassid that's enveloped in his essence? That means he's playing out his essence. It's not just dabbling with, so to speak, more external koiches. And the Rebbe Marash described to the Rebbe Rashab the tzir of Rabbi Isaac. Being that he was a tzir Atzmi, he was enveloped in, so to speak, his etzem, and connecting with that. So for a few years, he would go to the Lubavitch, that means to the Elter Zayda, just the Kabbalah soil. And to hear Chassidus, it was with a Chassidish and Kabbalah soil. I mean, Be'etzem, he had a lot to internalize. He went to Rebbe because Dark Chassidus is to go to a Rebbe. Once, and parenthetically, the Friedrich Rebbe brings there are two nuschos why the Tzemach Tzedek was mekarev Rabbi Isaac in such a way. Let's see. One nusach was mitzad the Tzemach Tzedek's closeness to him, or the second is mitzad his great dedication to the Tzemach Tzedek. So my father, the Rabbi Rashab, he approved of the second nusach. That was because of his dedication. It was near Tafresh Ches or Tafresh Tes when he was Chag HaShavuos in Lubavitch, which Bechlal Chag HaShavuos was called Chag HaMoitzim, the Chag that the Moira Tzedek would come, because there's not so many Shilas on that Yom Tov as opposed to Sukkot or Pesach. So he was in Lubavitch, and the Tzemach Tzedek called him to his room, and he said the following: I'm going to say for you Chassidus that I heard from the Zayda, referring to Rabbeinu Agadol the Alter Rebbe. I'm going to chazer a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, ois ba'ois. It means word for word what the way the Baal Shem Tov said it, with the Zayda's biur, with the explanations of the Alter Rebbe. When Rabbi Isaac left Yechidus, in which he heard this Torah from the Baal Shem Tov with explanation of the Alter Rebbe, he met a few young light and youngsters, so to speak, Tzeirim, that were learning then in the yeshiva of the Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek. Rabbi Isaac was he was so inspired and so uplifted, so ablaze, that he started dancing with them, and he kissed them. It's a tzakushmanze. And it was a pella, it was wondrous in the eyes of all the Chassidim, that a Baal Moichin Rechavim, someone with such a breita mind as Rabbi Isaac Hamler had, powerful mind, and Rechavim usually alludes to the fact that he was able to handle, he didn't leave his kelim for regular circumstances. He had Rechavim Vatzumim, like Rabbi Isaac, he should be with such his spilus, so to speak, so not only uplifted and taken out of his kelim. Everyone understood that for sure there was something great that took place there, but no one had, even though he brought himself closer and tzikush with the Chassidim and danced with them, no one had the breitkeit to ask Rabbi Isaac what the simcha is about. Now, the seder by Ziknei Chassidim was that every time they came to Lubavitch, they would farbring together, and by the farbringing that he, as an elder chassid, was farbringing with the rest of the Chassidim, so Rabbi Isaac Hammer said the following. Our chassid Rabbi Isaac said that as Mashiach vet kumen, when Mashiach comes, but when a Rufsteln Eislen, he referred to himself with as a nickname, otherwise they wouldn't refer to it. Eislen is by his first name, and like oif hand, that means they can put him on a hand like a little bear, yeah? Stand them on their hand. And mibet zogin, or dosat gelernt, or dosat gedaven, they're going to point out that this little one, so to speak, he davened and he learned. That means it's going to be nechshav. And this is actually connects back to where the Friedrich Rebbe is describing that, being that in our times this is what it calls for, it's a powerful statement, and we are fulfilling the kavanah alien, and therefore b'meg zayin freilach. That's what he's bringing this as an example to. And now the Friedrich that Rabbi Isaac said, they're going to put me on a hand, I'm taka small, but they're going to say, oh, doesn't get davened, or doesn't get learned, because I'm up to par with what's needed. Now the Friedrich Rebbe continues this by describing actually that generally Rabbi Isaac wouldn't, he would be mevatel himself. When he was talking, so to speak, in his own world, he would never talk about his davening and learning as proper, because he would always re-examine, and there's always refinement and elevation that's appropriate and place to grow. But the Friedrich Rebbe is going to say how much he put himself on the side to make this point for the Chassidim. They should notice how great it's up there. Das was Rabbi Isaac hat mevatel gewend dem ganzen Tzir shaloi. The fact that Rabbi Isaac would generally, he would make nothing of his character and things that he had achieved in his intellectually and avodah and his service to the Eibishter refinement. That had to happen between him and himself. And he brings an example similar to the Kohen Gadol, that when he had to be toivel himself on the first tefillah by Yom Kippur before he began the avodah, he had to boidik himself. He had to check himself from things that may be a separation between him and the water, things that are chatzitza when you toivel. And for this, state of the avodah that he had to do to boidik himself and to toivel and to, so to speak, elevate himself, the parsa sudden they had to, the kohenim would stretch and stretch out and hang, so to speak, a curtain between him and the people, so they shouldn't see, because that's what a person, a great yid, also has to check himself that he doesn't have gasos and he doesn't have haughtiness, etc. But that has to take place between him and himself in public. So Rabbi Isaac, so to speak, put his avodah on the side in order to describe that this, when a person is daven, what's demanded of him, he has to be freilach. Therefore, he considered it, etc. It's interesting, the example of choytzitzei tvila. It's not grubkeit and taking away problems. He's about to toivel and elevate himself, and the b'dika is that things shouldn't get in the way. That's the type of grubkeit we're talking about. Friedrich brings as an example to Rabbi Isaac refining himself. It says Yadua. It's known what the Alter Rebbe said. The reason for the name Chassid is based on the Tosfos and Nida Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, that a Chassid does for his friend even something that causes damage, or so to speak, destructive to him himself. It's known as Chassid Sarfan, that generally you don't burn or parts of the body, but a Chassid burns his nails, so a woman that's pregnant shouldn't walk on them and bring early days sakana zapola. He's ready to burn his nails. Chassid Sarfan. So even something that can cause him, so to speak, harm. So in the same vein, Rabbi Isaac does getan slib chsidim. He spoke in favor of his avodah and his davening for the benefit of Chassidim, even though it bothered him, that they should learn how a Chassid has to act and not just feel how he has to act in regards to his avodah. Now, ne'itzas haschala b'soy is b'soy dafke. I don't know if Friedrich gets back to the nekuda that he started, that we can already start celebrating now, because really, even though we're ikvas the Mashiach, but this is where the picture is complete. It comes full circle. The ne'itzas, so to speak, the implanting of the haschala, the beginning, the initial thought of how the vision of the world should play out, is dafke by the end, when the whole picture comes together, the entire building is actually complete. So he says the kavanah yoina of nesava kadosh baruch hu yisbarach dir tachtonim, the Eibishter's intent, his desire to have a dira, a dwelling place and a living quarters, dafke in this lowly world, that is fulfilled through galus yidden. With every year, we get closer and closer to the time of Bias Mashiach Meir Yemena Amen, and to the Gilui Or Atzmi, to the revelation of the essential light, the light, the way it is in the essence of the Eibishter, not just as Giluyim for people to appreciate, but where when a person is at home, that's where his essence is revealed. And same too, that's where the essential light, not just the light the Eibishter Kivyachal uses either to be Mechayed or to Mahava, or that's absorbing them. Bekitzer, Friedrich Rebbe Feirtais, therefore, being that we feel this, we know of this, we have to be B'simcha G'dayla. Before it actually becomes day, says the Friedrich Rebbe, it's natural, Kivyachal. The light of night becomes stronger. And when it starts breaking day, that's when it falls upon a person a strong sleep. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, b'muchash, that means tangibly one can see that when you're sitting by a winter night and one puts himself into a deep inyan and it's about to become breaking of dawn, it's starting to, then all of a sudden a strong sleep falls upon him, and dafke then you need a special chizuk, you shouldn't fall asleep, that's when you need to hold yourself strong. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, as hal baruch Hashem by Veran Lichtig, we're at a point in history that's about to become light. Golus is about to finish and Golus will begin, and it's starting to break the dawn of day, the light of day, and therefore dafke now we have to put in tremendous efforts, shtadlos and yegiyos, to invest koiches and thinking in ways that one should not fall asleep. Chassidim have to learn Chassidus barabim publicly. Getting back to what he discussed earlier in the Farbrengen. In all Chassidish Sholem there should be a kvias itim, a fixed times for learning Chassidus publicly, and with that the Eibishter will help that we should mizol der leben in nachas, with pleasure and with the light of day, in which it will be nisgala to Klal Yisrael, the urki toiv, the light that the Eibishter hid by the Sheshmei Bereshis. He hid it for these days, for Yemai Mashiach. Ois Yud Gimmel. The Friedrich Rebbe is going to describe in great detail and mamish in beautiful colors, mamish a vivid picture of the tremendous greatness of the cities in Lita that have Avas Torah, the love for Torah, and they hold Ben Torah and a Talmud Chacham in high regard and in his real place where he's meant to be, and then describes the place of Talmidei Atmimim in those areas like Kovna, Vilna, etc., in bringing the light of Chassidus to them and how it should be done. Zok der Friedrich Rebbe, Ois Yud Gimmel. Al Inyanim Hagashmim, in general, prefaces the Friedrich Rebbe, all physical items are but a mashal, they're a parable for understanding Getlichkeit, Ruchnius, Elikus. The truth is, says the Friedrich Rebbe, that everything is Elikus, is godly, and Elikus is the essence of everything. Elikus is Alts. However, in order for us to understand this and connect with this, how everything is Elikus and Elikus is everything, the Eibusher created a physical world with a multitude of items inside, and all these inyanim are but mishalim to understand Ruchnis. They're a conduit for us to connect and appreciate Ruchnis. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, a parable, a mashal. A Yoreg Doila, a tremendous vat that's full with hundreds of buckets of water. By nature, they're cold. And when a person wants to heat up these waters, it's very hard in one shot to heat up hundreds of buckets of water. Therefore, what you do is you take a saw of water and you heat it up on the side, and that should get so hot to the highest degrees that just the kli is able to handle without busting. And then this kli with the saw of boiling water has the place where they heat it up. And after this water is cooked, then they take the kli from the fire and they pour it into the big vat, and the hundreds of gallons of water slowly they get heated up from these little amounts that are boiled. Now the Friedrich Rebbe brings the nimshal. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, water is Torah, as we know, Ein Mayim Elo Torah. So, and it says the Friedrich Rebbe that Lithuania is Baruch Hashem a huge vat of Bnei Torah and loaded with water of Torah. He says, of Bnei Torah Kein Yirbu, may they multiply. He says, in addition to, aside from all the shmuas that I hear, says the Friedrich Rebbe, throughout the year, and reading letters that come from Lita, and speaking with those that come from there, there's a tremendous good impact and roshim, impression, that it has upon myself, being a guest by a Nash of Lita, and meeting people. Kama says a few Oilmisha Rabbanim and Bnei Torah, and reading various questions that are sent to me, says the Friedrich Rebbe, even from very simple common folk, Bali Batim, which are not Bnei Torah, not the full-time learning, rather the businessmen. That from all this, Herzachan, it's kentig, it's noticeable and discernible that the Avas HaTorah that exists in Lita. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, when I was in Riga, which is Latvia, it's more Polish, I told them, says the Friedrich Rebbe, that their midah tova that they have, that they shine in tzedakah and Gemilas Chesed, doing good with others, that Riga has Baruch Hashem is very good, so they're fine. But they should still, they should still learn from the midah tova that Lita has, the Avas HaTorah, the love for Torah that exists there in Lita. Lita has Baruch Hashem a geschmack in a ben Torah. They appreciate a ben Torah. And a yeshiva man, a person that learns in yeshiva, he takes a very high regard and status by the Litvische Yidden, which is the right place where Ben Torah ought to be, and ought to take that status, that state. Junge Light, they live in land, they dwell in learning, and they learn, and they continuously steig, they grow in Torah, in learning. However, says the Friedrich Rebbe, the nature of water is that it's cold. As is kalt verfroren, it's cold frozen. Now, water by nature, says the Friedrich Rebbe, not necessarily do they go bad, but it's possible that they could get verschimmelt, moldy, and therefore, however, when the water is mefachin, that means it's bubbling or it's moving, then it doesn't go bad. It means flowing water doesn't get verschimmelt. It doesn't become like a swamp. And every tnua comes about through heat, the movement of water. So you need to be able to heat up this Yoreg Doila, this tremendous vat. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, Talmud Atmimim, and a Chassidische Yid is a kli. He is that type of kli, which the saw of boiling water is a place that can handle the heat, and the Eish HaMachamim, and then hence in turn heat up the bath. The Talmidei Atmimim that are in Lita, they have to be happy with their lot, that they find themselves in an avir, in an environment of Avas HaTorah. And the yeshivas that are around in Lita, Ken Yirbu, they are Mayim Chaim of Lita. They are the living water of Lita. Talmidei Atmimim and Anash Hashem Aleim Yichyu in the Litvish cities, they have to strengthen themselves in the union of Kviyas Itim for learning Chassidus, themselves, to be the heated water that when they talk in Nigla, they bring movement in the world of learning in Nigla. In other yeshivas. He says then afterwards the Friedrich Rebbe turned to Hatalmid, Hatamim, Rabbi Shua Isaac. Shua Isaac Baruch. He was a Maizeda, Al Shalom Moshe Rubin, learned in Otvatsk, and he came through Vilna as well. That same time Chatrim that was escaping from the Nazis, they went through Shanghai, and he spoke of Rabbi Shua Isaac Baruch with tremendous regard. He was a mashpia. So he says, the Friedrich Rebbe says to him, he came for Yom Tov. He came from Kovna to be by the Friedrich Rebbe. So the Friedrich Rebbe said to him, when I got your letter regarding the Seder of Limud Chassidus that exists in a few shtetl between the Tmimim and Anash in Lita, I derived tremendous delight from it. A child, says the Friedrich Rebbe, a son, is a continuation of his father. Hence, my delight is really my father's delight. And when my father has, the Rebbe Rashab has Oinig, it's a source of tremendous abundance and blessing for all those that learn Tuin and Torah Avodah. The Friedrich Rebbe says, pass over my regards, Kibibra Grus, from us, L'chol Talmidei Atmimim Ba'anash and Lita, and see to strengthen the Kviyas Itim, the fixed times of learning Chassidus Barabim in public, and the Eibishter will be at will be for you at help, will help you Begashmis and Beruchnis. It's important to note that the Friedrich Rebbe is not even talking about teaching Chassidus to those that are learning Nigla. It's them being heated up on their own, that when they get involved with others, they bring that movement and that life. One of the people present at the Farbrengen challenged this mashal and pointed out a flaw, that it's not so, seemingly it doesn't really work for the Nimshal. This parable. Why? He said, Shaila, one of the people asked, based on what we understand from this parable, first of all, you can only deal with others if you are heated up properly. But you can't deal with others until you're at that boiling point. Secondly, when you pour the hot water into the cold water, they themselves can get overpowered, so to speak, by the temperature of the cold water and cool them down. So the Friedrich Rebbe, fascinatingly, is going to describe the place of a mashal and how it has to be taken. When you take a mashal from Gashmis to Ruchnis, you have to know exactly to what you're trying to bring this as a mashal to, and secondly, what exactly in the Gashmistic item you're taking the mashal from. It's not a general, like Likut, that one is nishtalshel from another and they have to be exactly aligned, like in the Spheres and the Midas. It's tshuva. The truth is that all inyanim Gashmim and their natures and their inyanim, they have to serve as a parable for us to understand Ruchnistic inyanim. However, together with this, one has to know that it's only an example, it's only a mashal. Even though it's pashut that this is here to be a mashal, but this yediyah itself, that this is just a mashal from these inyanim, it didn't emanate from it. It's just a mashal. So the mesira ha'aglama, giving over and the hagdara, that what this is meant to explain and where it's coming from within the mashal, is pivotal. It says, same too applies to the mashal that I have given, says the Friedrich Rebbe, of this tremendous vat of cold water. That the mashal is not doima completely to the nimshal, because in the mashal, you need until the saw of water is completely boiled up and the highest heat. Otherwise, you can't put it into the cold, and if not, it's going to get cooled off. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, that's dafka in the gashmistic form of this mashal, because the heat is not its real essential existence. Chamimus is not the default of the water for carrot, and therefore it is prone to cooling off. However, says the Friedrich Rebbe, Beruchni is, its nature is heat, right? It's eish. And being that it's atzmi adrabe, the more you are invested in heating up others, you bring out your innate nature to be zehitzt, the ruchnius. And therefore, fakert, the more you deal with others, the more heated you get up. Therefore, you should, even if you're not completely heated up, you should already start heating up others, and it will bring it out of yourself. It says, Rachmimus is atzmi. So, Adam, the more you deal with the krirus to heat it up, it reveals a deeper koyach within you to heat up. And the Previous Rebbe parenthetically says, this is not like, even though it's similar, it's not like what we generally explain, midas hanetzach. That when there's something, there's adversity, there's a koyach that's going against you, so to be victorious, you bring out the deeper resources in a person's nefesh to overpower struggle and obstacles. No, that's a separate inyan. Here we're talking about revealing b'nei chusa, your nature. Second, you start heating others, even if they don't go against you, that brings out your nature. Shambor become that it's ma'ir the koyach atzmi. He says that's the inyan of nitzachim, to be victorious, that is aroused mitzad the koyach hanigud, when someone goes against you. However, over here the kavanah is that the more you're dealing with awakening, with dealing with others, that awakens within you the koyach, a deeper koyach that already exists there in your nature. That's the difference between this and the nimshal and the mashal from the water, which their essential tava nature is to be cold, as opposed to over here. And he says the same too applies in every davar gashmi. For sure, you can find within it some benefit and a quality to help you understand an inyan ruchni. However, it's self-understood that the mashal is not completely, with all its details, similar to the nimshal. And for this, you need a havana, what to be mekarev, that means what to take closer to you and use as an example to explain a malarach, in which details in the gashmi are not necessarily there to further the understanding. That's the Tvi Merachik. And now the Frierdiker Rebbe drops a tremendous bomb. He says, this is generally what the Rosh Tevis Vidal Mavin, signifies when it's written in Chassidus. When we say Vidal Mavin, says the Frierdiker Rebbe, it's telling you that if you're a Mavin, so it's enough a ha'ara, or a ha'ara, the Frierdiker Rebbe is with an ayin, which means it's a footnote, so to speak. It's an awakening, drawing your attention to something, or giving you a glimmer of light for you to understand to which detail is what is going to shine light on the nimshal and help you understand it, and what is secondary, so to speak, and is irrelevant to the nimshal. Oisya Dalid. The Frierdiker Rebbe shares final words with the Farbrengen and Rabbi Shua Isaac Baruch, with whom he was discussing the tremendous avodah and special shlichus those tmimim in the cities of Lita have. Those Rabbi Shua Isaac Baruch was in Kovna, and he was a teacher also in Cheder Yagdel Torah. Says the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Cheder Yagdel Torah by you in Kovna, the way it's being led and ran now, is Baruch Hashem a Yisoid Musa. It's a powerful foundation in Yerushalayim. And Hashem Yisbarach should grant you tremendous abundance of brachas, begashmis, and beruchnis for all those that are involved in the work itself and those that support it. And the Eibusha should give in their hearts to strengthen, of those supporters, to strengthen and to expand and to make greater and bigger the moises there, and its boundaries should, so to speak, bust. It should grow, but with talmidim that are bali kishrein, capable and talented talmidim that continuously toil the shoykid in Torah and Yerushalayim, and from Yagdel Torah, the words Yagdel Torah, the Torah gets great. There's you Yagdel Yireim, and not just Torah should become great, but the Yerushalayim should spread as well.